U.S. and China face last chance to avoid January 1st tariff hikes, but don't get your hopes up. In spite of a rocky year, Tesla shocks the world and places third on the Freight.Tech 25. Silicon Valley money and the network effect lead Convoy to number 4. Battery and design woes continue to torment e-scooter startup Lime. And a major Thanksgiving snowstorm could delay truckers out west with flooding in some valleys. I'm JP.
And I'm Chad.
And we talk about all these issues and more on this week's episode of What the Truck.
JP, what you drinking here, sir?
So our ex-producer is probably better. Silent Barry Carpenter donated a Trim Tab Gravitational Nectar IPA. They are out of, Birmingham, Alabama?
Yeah, I've had one of those. They're not bad.
A town near and dear to Barry's heart. So, I'm proud to...
So for Barry's sake, we're going to say, yes, it's awesome.
I haven't tried it yet. And, no shade on Layla, our current producer, but it's cool. Barry, you're out there somewhere listening silently.
Well, with that endorsement...
It's okay.
Who needs friends?
It's okay.
Even though you haven't asked.
Chad, what do you have?
Well, it's from this. Noise pollution is from the Southern Grist Brewing in Nashville. And, oh, my gosh, shout out to Zach Strickland, the Sultan of Sonar, for hooking me up with this 7.5 ABV, 16-ounce, soft mouthfeel, I mean to say hazy. Oh, man. This is delightful.
Noise pollution is what this podcast is going to turn into if we have too many of those.
This is delightful. Well, I just have the one. Okay. So good times. Here we are. A fun series of headlines.
Let's get into it.
And big deals, little deals that we're faced with running headlong into the Thanksgiving weekend. So let's tackle this. So we're looking at the U.S. and China, heading in to January 1st. Right now, they are going to meet, or they are meeting at the G20 summit in Argentina. Why do they call it Argentina, JP?
Interesting. You should ask me that because I happen to know the answer. It's after the Latin word for silver, and it was named by the Spanish, who basically viewed the country as a giant source for silver mines, and they ended up taking so much silver out of South America that they crashed the European economy for like 75 years. Well,
I'm sorry that I asked you that, but that's impressive that you knew it. It's completely irrelevant to the story.
I suppose it is.
Anyway, basically they're talking about the tariffs on the $250 billion in Chinese goods and the $110 billion in reciprocal import duties China's imposing on the U.S.
Right.
What else do we have going on? In terms of thinking about it, just don't get your hopes up.
It just seems like they're running out of time. I think that there have been reports coming out from a number of investment banks and different corporations have given guidance that basically we can kind of tell it's hurting China worse than it's hurting us. There's no reason for the Trump administration to get in a hurry.
You think it's hurting China
worse than it's hurting us?
Right? Really?
Oh, by far.
But at the same time, some forecasters I feel like are saying that it may be hurting us more because China, we're still importing. Actually, I think the Q3 earnings reports estimate that we've imported between 5 to 10% more than we had previously. We're continuing to import more while China's able to make other relationships and continue to export just as much as ever.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's one line of thinking. But if you just look at the Chinese equities markets in Hong Kong and than even the volatility we've seen in Dow Jones and S&P 500.
Well, so why does it seem then, according to the committee's trade bulletin, that the Chinese government continues to resist compromises?
I think that they have supra-regional ambitions. They want to save face. They are trying their damnedest to partner with a lot of the countries that we sort of left in the lurch when we pulled out of TPP. So a lot of the smaller Pacific economies, they're trying to move in, present themselves as the stable, predictable, what you're going to get sort of senior economic partner in a relationship. So they're still, I think it's a messaging effort. It's a propaganda effort. They're trying,
that makes sense.
Save face and control the situation as best they can. But by any objective measure, they're way more exposed to this than we are. So that's the bottom line.
They're way more exposed, but nobody expects a compromise to be reached. And while consumer confidence it continues to be at an all-time high right now, once we start seeing price increases as a result of
the thing, I've talked to Ibrahim Bayan about this over lunch. It's not the case that when you do a 25% tariff on a good that's coming out of the country, that results in a 25% price increase.
Not directly proportional.
Because that would render the product completely uncompetitive, and they would lose out. So at different points in the supply chain, whether it's the manufacturers, the freight forwarders, the transportation people, the different kind of additive, assembly things and stuff like that, they all eat a different chunk of it. The last thing they want to do is try to pass it directly on, because everybody would be like, well, this widget still costs $1, and yours costs $1.25. Buy. They can't have that happen. So it's not just about the price increase. It puts pressure on the entire part of the supply chain that's in China.
In China, okay. Well, anyway, at some point, though, it is, I think, reasonable to think that prices will go up, and that, and regardless of how it translates, that we will see, I think everybody industry-wide anticipates a softening in the economy at the beginning of 2019 as a result of, at least in large part due to the tariffs, but not everybody necessarily sees that lasting. Nobody can predict it completely, of course.
Right. The economy is still growing.
Interest rates have a big impact.
Interest rates are going up, which kind of scares people. The yields on 2s and 10s is getting flat, which freaks people out. But let me get this straight. I still think that tariffs are kind of dumb, but I'm just trying to explain why I don't think that they are going to resolve this in Argentina, the land of silver, before January 1st.
I don't either, but anyway, there is the hope springs eternal, and there is that slight possibility. We continue to cover the Freight.Tech 25 winners.
Yeah, we're doing these little profiles on each of the companies in the Freight.Tech 25, kind of in order, and that's basically, we had a panel of 60 independent industry experts, whether they're on sort of the financial side, the operational side, media people, consultants, all of that, voting on and ranking their top 25 most innovative companies in transport and logistics. And so we covered the first couple, and now we are down to number 3, Tesla.
Right, and the FreightWaves Research Institute was created to recognize the most innovative and disruptive companies in freight and logistics. And as you've pointed out before, it was you were a part of this. There was an original list of over 500 nominations. And then the Institute narrowed it down to the Freight.Tech 100, and then winnowed that down even further to the Freight.Tech
independent
25.
Voters. Yeah, the independent voters created the 25.
Right, and these top 25 are the ones we're covering, and we're honored to like release some of these. Today, or this week, we've covered numbers 3 and 4. Right. And so I wrote about number 3, which is the colorful and controversial Tesla, of which you have prided yourself on being a bear. On Tesla. Yes, you have. But in spite of the continued bashing that we have given Tesla, now we are called on to praise them because, while there are many good reasons to criticize many of the operational decisions and business dealings, not to mention their general inaccessibility, they didn't respond to any comments for this article. But
it's probably my fault.
It might have shaded them a little bit.
Yeah, no, but I mean,
but if you were to evaluate them,
I would never say that they weren't innovative.
Yes,
innovation and
they
occupy the bleeding edge of electrification and transportation, globally speaking. They have built the best electric cars in the world. They are pulling the rest of the American automotive industry with them.
People are following
burning cash as they go. But I mean, that's what the bleeding edge is. You're bleeding.
It doesn't feel good.
And the reason I think why they're on this list is probably because of, 1, their autonomous technology, and 2, the electric semi that they've been promising.
Yeah. Okay. We could easily get them confused. People think Tesla, and they think Hyperloop, and they think SpaceX. They think
Solar City
the
and
Boring
batteries.
Company, but actually the reason that we do conflate them together is they were all founded by Elon Musk, and he has a shared vision for Tesla, as he does with like the Solar Company and the Boring Company and SpaceX. So, I mean, in terms of innovation, they're playing in the big leagues. This isn't evaluated on business models.
Honestly, the third quarter results they posted,
and that's
what net earnings of, what was it, like 280-ish?
I don't remember the
$1 million.
Exact numbers at all. I just remember it was finally positive and probably their best one to date.
Yeah, their third profitable quarter in 15 years.
But their overall best one.
Yeah.
As you had said.
They're making a lot more cars. Hundreds of thousands of cars a year. Selling a lot of cars. Consumer demand remains very strong for the Model 3. Even the higher spec, more expensive Model 3s, they haven't even gotten down to manufacturing the $35,000 model yet. So, I mean, there's a lot to be positive about. I think even SpaceX had a great year. They just matched their own record with 18 launches this year. So if they can pull off another one, that'll be a record year for them too.
It's very aspirational. Yes.
Yeah.
I think to finish on this thought, as you wrote on October 25th, if Tesla can keep generating cash, such as they're doing, let's see,
free cash flow.
The company's current debt load starts to look manageable, and you wrote, in our view, Q3 2018 was Tesla's, we just said that, their best quarter. The company managed to build cars at scale, control costs, and achieve meaningful profits. They ended up laying off 9% of their workforce and turning a profit. I mean,
these
things happen.
It's interesting.
Tell us about, you today, I think, released an article on the network effect, Silicon Valley money and the network effect, and leading to Convoy being our number 4 of the Freight.Tech. Tell us about them.
Yeah, it was really cool actually to meet the CTO, Grant Goodall, at FreightWaves in Dallas this past week and hang out with him at the bar. He's a really nice dude, and we love the company and the technology. But basically, what I was trying to do is tell their story. And they started with a really simple premise that's actually an equation that came out of telecommunications theory, and it's called Metcalfe's law, and it basically says that a network effect, or the power of a network, is proportional to the square of the connected users. And essentially what that means is that as you grow a network, in this case loads and trucks, as you grow a network, matching loads doesn't become linearly more easy. It becomes exponentially more easy.
Oh, instead of like additive, it's like synergistic.
Yeah, and and as a consequence of that, a digital brokerage with a larger network than its competitor has an exponential advantage over it, not a linear advantage over it in matching loads.
Whoa,
and so they started.
You heard it here first, ladies and gentlemen.
And I actually learned about this talking to one of their investors, Andrew Davis, who's a VP at T. Rowe Price, who participated in their Series C. And it was interesting because that was the Series C, the $186 million that they raised that brought them to a unicorn valuation. That was really the first time that traditional Wall Street investors and asset managers, as opposed to Silicon Valley VCs, had gotten involved and sort of bought into the story. And so our conversation was like, what changed about your all's thesis on Convoy? Like, you've known about them for 2 years. Why are you just now getting in? And he really said that matching loads is a math problem governed by Metcalfe's law. I quickly Googled Metcalfe's law, and then he was saying, but they've really shown how much they can learn about freight. I mean, when you think about it, this is a startup that was founded 3 years ago in Seattle by two people who came from Amazon. Before that, they had some experience running other kinds of software startups and working at Google and Microsoft and stuff like that. But
maybe not ironic that Amazon was their #1 Freight.Tech winner.
Maybe, yeah. I mean, it's not surprising. But they didn't. How much did they actually know about the business of trucking? Well, it seems like they started with an equation, but they realized how do so network effect is proportional to the square of connected users. How do you keep the users connected? How do you engage the carriers and make them want to use your app instead of other people's?
Yeah.
And so they started.
Achieving critical mass is like the main thing for tech companies.
Exactly, and the stickiness of the app, keeping people on the app, right, as opposed to someone else's app. What's your economic moat? And so this year they actually rolled out 3 really interesting products that I think have made a critical difference for them. One of them was automated detention pay.
I remember that.
So if a truck gets stuck at a DC or a dock and hits that 2-hour mark, blah blah blah, the driver's getting stressed out. He or she has to be somewhere. They end up leaving and essentially trying to negotiate accessorial and detention pay after the fact.
And I remember, if I may, they released this early in the year when, as the capacity crunch was really hitting us in the industry, and it was like, whoa, shippers need to get on board. They're delaying, everybody. At this state in the year, it's really been absorbed by the industry, and shippers have kind of gotten on board. But at the time, this was a differentiator.
Yeah, and it's still a really big pain point. But here's the interesting part. Convoy said we guarantee automatic detention pay on the loads that you booked through the app. So don't call our traditional brokers. Go through the app. So Convoy knows that their cost to cover a load is so much lower in the app versus their normal brokerage on the phone that they can guarantee detention pay. Even if they don't recover it from the shipper ultimately, it's still cheaper for them.
What a cool thing.
So that was one thing they did. The other thing they did was they created their Power Only program, which is a gray trailer pool so that owner-operators and small fleets that don't have a ton of trailers placed strategically all throughout the country, they can get drop and hook freight. So they can avoid detention entirely. They bring it in, they let go, they're out, they pick up, so that kind of basically streamlines the owner-operator sort of way that they run their trucks in the same way that large carriers try to do. And the final one was actually something for shippers, which is pretty interesting. It was the dynamic backup, which is basically it places an instantly bookable real-time market rate quote in a shipper's routing guide. So, when capacity's tight, you're getting all these tender rejections that we talk about all the time. You're like, right. Okay, should I put this on the spot market? Should I pay a broker who knows how much money he's going to make off of me? Blah, blah, blah. Convoy gives you an instantly bookable rate that is based on real-time market data that they guarantee capacity for. You click that, you pay for it, they take care of everything else. Boom, it's done.
Guaranteed capacity.
And so basically the story is that you start off with some software people who are really smart and an equation, and you're looking at the problem as a math problem. And then you start building on these really unique, cutting edge product offerings to keep people engaged, to keep your network growing, and to keep that Metcalfe's Law kind of in place.
And it's all about the innovation. So, man, a fascinating company, and those are the third and fourth winners of a lot of great companies. Another interesting thing that happens in the e-scooter startup space with Lime. Boy, do they have a lot of issues, and it's like such a controversial subject. It's like so fun to have scooters in your city, helping you be a smart city, but boy, do they have a lot of issues to figure out. We are visited right now with a guest, an in-house guest, Casey Larkin, visiting us. Casey, tell us a little bit about your experience using an e-scooter.
Yeah, absolutely, guys. Really glad to be on here. Thanks for the invite. I have a little bit of experience with these e-scooters myself, spending some time in Dallas. Some of the problems that they have is that, these scooters are littered all over the sidewalk, right? There's no bay or
right, which is part of the fun, though, right? You can just drop it off anywhere. Sounds good to me.
Exactly, right? Here's a 24-year-old kid just a couple years removed from college. I'm all for that. It's
right.
It's a great time, really easy way to get around the city with a couple of buddies. But on the opposite side,
was it fun?
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. These things are pretty quick. You can get going, 20, 25 miles an hour.
Can you go really that fast on them?
Were you wearing a helmet, Casey? I'm worried.
No.
Or were you wearing your baseball cap backwards?
Cap backwards, per usual. Check.
Aerodynamic.
Exactly. Really a lot of fun.
Well, what's your overall sense, just from a consumer point of view? Like what are the cool things about it? But what do you feel like maybe are some... anything? Are there any criticisms you might have as well?
Obviously, like I said, it's a lot of fun to ride these things.
Okay.
My parents would never let me get an electric scooter growing up, and
so this is revenge
for safety concern. But
was it cheap? Was it not very? I mean, or what? What was the price point? Was that a pain point or?
It was not a pain point. It was more of a safety point. My mother.
Oh, I meant the price of the was it a Bird or a Lime scooter that you hopped on?
I was on a Bird scooter.
Okay.
How much did it cost?
It's $1 or $2, from what I remember.
Wow.
Okay, so the price was not a pain point.
Affordable compared to Uber or Lyft or any of the other.
And do you ride these
options.
on the sidewalk or the street?
See, that's the big problem for me, right? Is a lot of people are riding these things on the sidewalks, coming around some sharp turns, going very quickly, and
yeah.
That could definitely be dangerous.
There's all kinds of abuses, it seems, that could be it's like the Wild West with these things, right? I mean, so they're fun right now, but I'm hearing that there's all kinds of accidents happening, that people on these scooters are not, they're not wearing, I sound so parental or something, they're not wearing helmets, but they're also just not looking when they're crossing the crosswalks. I witnessed this when I was in Atlanta, just guys just cruising through intersections, not even looking to the right or left.
Absolutely.
And I'm trying to think of how I would use this, and it seems like I would be using it as an alternative to an Uber if I'm going. And so when do I use Uber? When I'm going out, out in the city, partying or whatever. And so you're putting all these people, instead of having a sober Uber driver and a drunk passenger, you're saying, hey, you drunk kid who thinks it's a great idea to rent an e-scooter, something that you've never driven before in your life, go for it. There's only going to be a couple dollars in between you and
destiny.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, did you have to? Did they verify that you were 18?
I can't remember. I downloaded the app and hopped on.
Have you heard of people like riding their scooter drunk or anything crazy like
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I've seen that fairly frequently.
Oh, really?
Yeah, my parents live in uptown Dallas, right there on McKinney Avenue, where all the bars and restaurants are, and Pretty much any time of day, you can see somebody out there kind of making
hot dogging,
weaving between the lines
on these scooters.
Well, I've also heard from our one of our data scientists, Ken Smith, that he's like these things are really being abused, and he is strongly against them. And he is he's saying that even the fire departments are having a lot more calls as a result of, I don't know why they would be, some kind of emergencies happening with them, but also that
like the batteries catching on fire.
Is that happening? I mean, I know that they're failing for the Lime scooters. They've had that was part of the article here, is that they're failing. They had a public spat with their battery company, and the battery company was saying that, no, it's how you guys are managing them, that they're failing. It's your problem. But also I've heard that like police officers, like people hop on these things and police officers can't catch them. So like you almost have to have like a dedicated police force. So, I mean, it sounds so awesome. I want to hop on one. I want one. May I just hop on? And I love the idea of them not being like there's some like place you have to put them. But eventually I would think that that's going to have to happen. But I don't know. What do you think, Casey?
Yeah, I think that's definitely, a huge problem. I think there have been, I can't remember specifically, but I think there's a big class action lawsuit out in California.
Oh, is there?
Potentially San Francisco. I can't remember the city specifically, but yeah, people think that it's a massive safety hazard with them being left all over the sidewalk, and people in the ER seeing more people hitting cars and getting there as a result of riding these scooters.
Well, let the good times roll, I guess, right? It's the Wild West of the startup. I wouldn't call it the last e-commerce mile, but the e-scooter startup mile. But thanks for visiting with us and for your input on that story.
Thanks, Casey.
Thanks, guys, for having me.
So our last story, last headline story of the day is about, a major snowstorm hitting this Thanksgiving weekend, sort of in the Sierra Nevadas. So, think Donner Pass on I-80.
Donner Pass.
This is a story by Nick Austin, our, senior meteorologist.
What could go wrong at Donner Pass?
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, so basically a lot of snow, wind. It's going to be a major accumulation of what, 6 to 15 inches is what he was calling for.
Yeah, and flooding in some valleys.
Right, if that melts and that sort of thing. So it's this weird sort of Eastern California, Western Nevada, very mountainous. It's the Sierra Nevadas.
They're no stranger to heavy snowfall.
Right, and this is really the story here is this is the first one. So
and
carry
it's Thanksgiving,
chains,
and they could be seeing 3 to 4 feet on the mountaintops. So that's a lot. 12 inches or more above 8,000 feet.
Yeah, and
they haven't had any precipitation for the past 45 days.
Wow. So Nick Austin said that the majority of this snow will fall between Wednesday afternoon through Thanksgiving morning.
So watch out for those areas. Those areas there, and in fact, everybody travel safely this Thanksgiving weekend. We like to celebrate the beer drinking, but we want to do it in the confines of our own studio or our own homes. So be safe out there. All right, America. Thanks for. Okay, maybe all of America's not listening, but to our listeners. JP, what? Are you biting your lips?
Sorry. That was good. That was really heartfelt.
Well, thank you. And I am grateful for you, and I'm grateful for.
Yeah, I'm thankful for With a Truck.
Yeah.
And this little Nerf football that says FreightWaves on it.
Yeah.
Thankful for
I'm thankful for Layla
and Casey
and all of our producers here at What the
and
Truck.
friends of the podcast.
Yes, and thank you to you all, and please don't hesitate to give us feedback on how we're doing. But in the meantime,
Big deal or little deal?
what's the deal with you, Dill Pickle?
Let's do it.
Okay,
you think we can do this in 2 minutes?
Yes, we can, if I'll quit talking. All right, so here we go. Electric, hydrogen, and modal shifts among pathways to a net zero carbon environment for transportation. Big deal or little deal?
It's a big deal. As electricity generation becomes more green, transportation is one of the biggest carbon emitters. So it's the next shoe to fall.
FedEx Freight to operate last mile pilots in 5 markets during the first half of 2019. Big deal or little deal?
I think it's a big deal. It's part of a play, I think, to take a little bit more market share from UPS. It's interesting to see that how their LTL business is kind of faltering.
Postal workers in Canada reject Canada's Post's call for a cooling down period. Big deal or little deal?
I think it's a little deal. I don't think they're going to go on strike.
Panama spread widens in last week for pre-tariff China East Coast sailings. Big deal or little deal?
It's a little deal. I think that we're nearing the peak for China to East Coast spot rates, which will come down going into December as the West Coast remains the only option. Jet fuel surcharge is adding to air shippers' holiday costs. Big deal or little deal?
Big deal. The cost of jet fuel burn is burning a hole in the pockets of air express shippers, and that means rising consumer costs.
Deutsche Post DHL Group announces $21 million venture raise for supply risk company Resilience 360. Big deal or little deal?
Easy for you to say. Big deal. They've got the customers, the data points, and now a huge runway to expand its mission for visibility and transparency.
FedEx orders 1,000 Change electric vans from Ryder. Big deal or little deal?
Little deal? I mean, it's a step in the right direction. It's a lot of vans for Ryder. One step at a time.
Albertsons ignores the noise and orders 10 Tesla semi-trucks. Big deal or little deal?
I'm going to say little deal. It's a small order for Tesla trucks, and that's it. It's little deal. Albertsons, listen to the noise.
Oh,
we just did it. Whoa, by a
well, yeah,
a
159.9. Wow, we're getting good.
Layla's got quite the stopwatch too.
That was intense.
Job.
I'm literally shaking.
Are you okay?
This is a figure of speech.
So JP, it is great to be here at Market Waves 18, just conducting these 5 Good Minutes episodes. What do you think?
Where's the bells too hard?
Yeah, right
no, it's
now,
cool. It's cool.
We're kind of taking one for the team.
Yeah,
here,
I'm in this weird headspace right now. I think the Mountain Dew is starting to get to me a little bit, all the sugar, but I'm super glad to be here with Marissa Ash, who works in strategy and business development at Transfix, the startup brokerage based in New York City. Marissa, thanks for coming.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here. The conference has been super exciting, and I'm happy to talk to you guys.
Yeah, great to have you on board. Are you ready to play 5 Good Minutes?
Yeah, let's do it.
And, there is a prize for you if you run the gauntlet of our questions in under 5 minutes.
Okay.
Would you like to know what those are?
Yeah.
It could either be a FreightWaves backpack or a Michael Lewis Fifth Risk book. His brand new book.
Those are 2 good options.
I know, right? So we'll, one thing at a time.
Kind of depends on if the backpack suits your style or not, right? That's kind of what it
it's
comes
a
down
serious backpack, though. Lots of zippers.
I know, there's so many zippers.
Yeah.
Anyway.
And so little time.
All right, let's do this.
Okay, ready or not, here we go.
So Transfix has a really interesting mix of brokers on the floor and technology people. Can you tell us a little bit about what shaped the company in that way?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think Transfix has a super compelling founding story. And talking to Drew and Jonathan, who are co-founders, was one of the big reasons I decided to join. So Drew literally grew up in a freight brokerage. His parents owned one. He started booking loads, I think, as young as 12.
Wow.
After college, he joined the family.
Prodigy.
Yes, Drew is definitely a truck prodigy. after college, he joined the family business and then eventually went on to run it. And I think it was that experience that really opened his eyes to all the inefficiencies in the market. And he had this really compelling feeling that something could be done better. He teamed up with Jonathan Salama, who is our CTO and just a really tremendous technologist. And together, kind of Transfix was born, and they, I think, have this amazing ability to both deeply understand the problems that plague drivers, that plague dispatchers, shippers, and able to build products to solve those specific problems.
Right. Well, and apparently you just graduated from a Stanford Business School, and you kind of made a career pivot. Can you tell us about like what led to your decision?
Yeah, so before school, I was working at a hedge fund. Went to business school with the goal of really understanding what are other opportunities in the world, what are problems that people are solving. And as I was thinking about what I wanted to do afterwards, I knew I wanted to move to New York, wanted to work for a growth phase startup that was solving real world problems. When I came across Transfix, it was honestly the first time that I had ever really thought about trucking or logistics. I'd never met a truck driver, hadn't really considered what the problems were. As I did research and talked to employees, I kind of learned it is kind of a textbook place that you want to have a startup. It is a huge market that is highly fragmented, that has not been disrupted by technology, and that's kind of the exact place that startups can make huge impact. And so for me, I was super motivated to solve problems that was going to affect drivers from day one, create massive efficiencies, and I really believed in the founding team.
Wow, that's fantastic.
That's great. So can you tell us a little bit about what you do at Transfix?
So I started a couple of months ago and have been focused on kind of our sales and marketing efforts. Transfix, Drew and Jonathan have done a really wonderful job kind of building out the products, but the story of Transfix hasn't really been told to the world. And so one of the big projects that I was tasked with was kind of figure out how do we get the Transfix story out there? How do we share all the impact that we're having? We're going to 3x our revenue for 2018 versus 2017. We are growing kind of month over month, quarter over quarter with our biggest customers, and I think are on track to make a huge impact in the industry. And so that has been kind of one of my big focuses, as well as thinking about our sales strategy and how do we kind of grow on both the demand and the supply side.
I see. So, well, what are some of your takeaways from being here at FreightWaves and learning about the tech revolution that is happening in the industry now?
I think it's been really exciting and motivating to see how many people are focused on solving the inefficiencies that we're also trying to focus on. I think another big reflection is just how fragmented the industry is at every level, vertically, horizontally, and it's exciting to figure out who are the people we're going to be able to partner with to make big change.
Right. That's interesting. What kinds of technologies are you guys looking at sort of right now?
So we kind of think of our technology in three main buckets. The first is what we provide to our shippers. So how do we enable them to tender and manage their freight easier? To our carriers and drivers, how do they find the right load at the right price at the right time? And then internally, I think the tools that we've built out are the most impressive. So we've created massive efficiency in terms of how many people and minutes we're spending booking every single load. And then most interesting is our pricing technology. We've developed a proprietary algorithm that is able to produce instantaneous prices on thousands of loads. And we have so much confidence in those prices that we guarantee them. So as soon as we quote them, we promise that. And even if that means we take a loss, we take a loss. But we are that confident that our technology is that good.
Fascinating. And you did it!
Yes!
Right?
4 minutes and
she
45
wins the
seconds.
Prize. But that is great it's great to learn about Transfix. They weren't on my radar screen.
Yeah,
it's good.
It's great to meet you too.
Very interesting blend of tech and operations. So
we're glad to be
great
here.
to have you. So are you choosing the backpack or the book?
I might go with the book. Hearing the keynote was fascinating. I can't wait to learn more.
Yeah. Have you ever read Michael Lewis's books before?
I've read Moneyball, but and so I'm excited for this one.
That's a good one from a data point of view, right?
Absolutely.
All right.
Transfix loves data, so.
That's right.
The other one that you might like to Liar's Poker, his first book. It's
Oh,
about
yeah.
it's about bond trading at Salomon Brothers in the 80s.
Yeah. No, I will put that on my list.
Yeah, if you kind of want to get a little nerdy, like JP.
It's his first. Sometimes your first book is like where you really like put the effort into every sentence.
I see. All right.
Well, great to meet you guys.
Great to meet you, Marissa. Thanks for being on What the Truck.
As always, we go into more detail about each of the topics we've talked about today on our website, FreightWaves.com. We will continue to publish this podcast weekly, so be sure to subscribe to What the Truck on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Stitcher, and SoundCloud. Also, make sure to leave us a review to let us know what you think of our new podcast. That'll do it for today. Thanks for tuning in, and we will see you next week on What the Truck.